across the pond, let's jump back into NWSL for a little bit and chat a little bit about some news there. NWSL announcing a deal with Delta Airlines, Delta Airlines becoming the official airline and travel partner of the National Women's Soccer League. It's a multi-year partnership. It's the first ever airline sponsor of NWSL. And I got to say, Lisa, let's talk about it a little bit before we move on into more NWSL news. When this drops and you sort of like see all the words, right, all the verbiage that comes out of it, you're like, okay, official airline and travel partner, right? So you're like
Mhm.
you're looking at these releases, and I think right away that kind of signals you're looking for, like, you're like, oh, this is going to be great for the
Yeah.
players, right? But when we're taking a look at some of these releases, kind of leaving some questions open there, right?
Yes, that was honestly my first reaction. Maybe I'm a little over optimistic or I haven't been around long enough. I don't really know. I was like, this is so exciting. The league has an airline partner. The players now have a consistent airline that they get to fly. They have a consistent flying schedule, maybe consistent seats, because that's been a huge topic of conversation in the league is players flying and middle seats, and they have to check a bag and it's on their own dime, and there's a lot of things that happened. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, did I miss that in the CBA? However many times I read or talked about the CBA, did I miss that they
Yeah.
would have more consistent or fair or at least flying abilities that were like even across the board for them and their teammates and across the teams? No. So this is a partnership, but financially solely, I'm kind of like confused about this
Yeah.
because it is the first airline partnership of the league and starting their 10th year. This is about time. But from the press releases that I've seen and what's been announced, it doesn't mean that the players will be flying Delta. It doesn't mean that Delta will be securing flights or seats for the players and the teams while they're in season traveling to away games. I mean, so that was kind of my initial reaction. I was like super
Yeah.
pumped. And then it was like deflating of the balloon as I continued to read the press
Yeah.
release. Like, oh, this is just for finances and for the name of it. I mean, what did you think about this? It's a multi-year partnership too.
I mean, look, I mean, there's different angles where you could sort of come at to this, right? You can look at it half, glass half full. You can look at it glass half empty. And I don't think either are wrong. I think there are truths to either
Mhm.
side of it, right? Is it a good thing that the league continues to find ways to ensure that there is money that comes into the league? Yeah,
Totally.
absolutely.
Totally.
100%, right? Does it, is it kind of unsettling that this deal doesn't include something with that includes a direct travel implication for its players? Yeah, like these are all things that could be true at the same time, right? Neither one's, I think, right or wrong. Although, additional reporting out there, shout out to Meg Linehan, friend of the podcast, saying that, it doesn't rule out. Sources are saying that it's not ruling out further conversations about that type of angle to work with, with Delta for players in terms
Mhm.
of the actual language around flights and travel for the players moving forward. But I think with the announcement of this deal, I think it comes following some reporting from Howard Megel on the WNBA, where there was a big story about coming out about chartered flights and the New York Liberty specifically, and trying to utilize their resources to ensure that their players are always able to travel the best way they can. And it's just sort of like all of these things kind of coming out adjacent to each other, just sort of, I think, maybe made people sort of want to try to connect some dots, or feel things some certain kind of way. We're talking 10 years, right, for this league in existence. Just now finally having an airline sponsor, right? There's things to
Mhm.
celebrate there, but I'm sure there's also going to be a contingent and a sector of followers of the league who are like, gosh, it's been a decade and there's just now going to be like an airline sponsor. So I think this can only be a good thing when you're looking at just sort of the generalization of it, and that, hey, money into the league is always going to be
Huge.
a huge and important thing. And hopefully this will just maybe be the first step of maybe other things that could come along the way with a sponsorship deal like this in place, and obviously there were things within the announcement. There's things that are titled that the multi-year deals, yes, it's going to include other opportunities for things like fan engagement. It's going to be, in addition to programming for diversity, and inclusion. So these are all good things within it. So as it's getting announced, as the league is entering the 10th year, celebrate it, right? In terms of like it is a big announcement, but there's nothing wrong with continuing to want more. I think as these announcements, these types of deals and announcements continue to get announced and rolled out. In terms staying with the NWSL and other news, there's still some signing news to talk about a little bit. Washington Spirit signing their 2022 draftee Tanaya Alexander and re-signing Kelley O'Hara to a 1-year deal. Spirit just locking them up, just really locking them up and looking like they're the team to chase for 2022.
Yeah, and these deals coming out like after the preseason rosters. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see them continuing to sign players, give them deals and everything that's happening. It just means we're getting one step closer to the start of the season, Sandra. And that's like really what I'm pumped about. And there's also been NWSL preseason matches that have been happening and scrimmages. We talked about them a little bit in Monday's episode of this week, but more tournaments starting. We touched on that. Portland was hosting and a preseason tournament with OL Reign, Chicago Red Stars, and the United States U23 women's national team. That has kicked off. There are actually more games Tuesday evening. We're recording this Tuesday afternoon, and the second round of games happened tonight. So stay tuned to those to find out what happened. But OL Reign in Portland, they opened the tournament with their little scrimmage 0-0 in the opening match of this tournament. And then Chicago Red Stars and the US U23 team, they also tied 0-0. So interesting, off to an interesting start. But I think from looking at these games that happened, there's a lot of player rotation, a lot of different players looking to get minutes and stuff. Yes, which is what you want to see, right? I mean, 17 different players featured for the Thorns throughout this one. A lot of young players, a lot of new players, and that's exactly what you want to see. So take the scoreline at face value, with a grain of salt, for sure.
Yeah. 0-0 scoreless draws. You know what they call that? They call that preseason, baby. And it's gonna still got about 10 days to a week or so left of it before we start getting into Challenge Cup action. And we'll have more on that in the future. And we're going to actually have more for you after a quick break when we talk a little bit about our mailbag. And we'll be right back.